Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 648 based on novel. So let's start. Outside the ancient ancestor statue, only 7 halos remained, giving off a soft glow. However, one of the 7 halos dimmed and seemed like it could dissipate at any moment. Wang Lin. Xian Luo was blocked outside the ancestral temple. He was anxious and sent out a divine sense into the ancestral temple. However, it was like a cow entering the sea. Xian Luo was uncertain if Wang Lin could hear it. His hands formed seals and a sun-like halo appeared around him. He stepped into the ancestral temple, but he only took a few steps before he was knocked back out by the rebound force. As Xian Luo continued to try inside the ancestral temple, Wang Lin's body had completely dried out like a skeleton. There were no specks of light around him and his will was so dim that it was almost imperceptible. Countless attempts at fusion had failed, causing his will to be almost wiped out. It was completely silent, but a moment later, an anxious voice echoed in his place. Wang Lin. Wang Lin. Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes were closed and he remained motionless. However, when the voice echoed, a flash of red light came from his skeleton-like body. This red light was the soul blood inside his body. This flash seemed to light up the darkness deep inside the ancestral temple. Time passed, but it was unknown how much. For more halos had dissipated and now only 3 remained. A lot of the light that had shrouded the world for years had disappeared, and for the first time in over a decade, night was different. However, no one was cultivating on this night. They were all looking at the ancient ancestor statue, and even their breathing seemed to stop. Then one of the 3 halos around ancient ancestor statue struggled like a candle flame in the wind before it extinguished. One more has disappeared. Only 2 halos remain. This person's soul split has gone on for 20 years. Can he really not succeed? When these 2 halos disappears, he... Quickly, look, another one has disappeared. A gasp echoed across the entire imperial city and almost everyone took a deep breath. Another halo disappeared, and now only 1 remained. And this halo was also slowly dimming. Wang Lin. Wake up. Xian Luo threw a punch at the ancestral temple and let out a heaven-shattering roar. This roar echoed across the entire imperial city like thunder and finally rushed toward the ancestral temple. He stepped into the ancestral temple by force once more and was rejected by the rebound force. Xian Luo was extremely anxious. He had experienced the ancient Tao 3 soul splits before. As long as the halos remained, even if there was no vitality or consciousness, it was not death, but something like sleeping. A sleeping of the soul. If Wang Lin could be awakened from this sleep, as long as the halos remained, there would be a chance of survival. This was why he had chosen to come guard Wang Lin. But once all the halos disappeared, this sleep would be equal to true death. Wang Lin, I'm your teacher, Xian Luo. Quickly, wake up. Xian Luo roared as he focused all his voice into the ancestral temple he could not step into. When his voice echoed across the entire ancient Shu imperial city, it startled everyone. Almost everyone had been wondering who had been going through the calamity in the ancestral temple. There was finally an answer to this question. Wang Lin? This name is a bit familiar. It's him. This Wang Lin is the person who killed the ancient Tao Emperor more than 100 years ago. It's actually him. Rumor has it that this Wang Lin is the 10th Grand Empyrean of the immortal astral continent. My God, I didn't expect the person going through the calamity in the ancestral temple to be that Wang Lin. As Xian Luo roared anxiously and it echoed across the ancient Shu imperial city, the last remaining halo became even more dim. It looked like it could dissipate at any time. Deep inside the ancestral temple, the bloodlight on Wang Lin's body flickered even more violently. Who is calling me? Wang Lin seemed to be asleep in a strange space. That place was blurry and he was walking blindly until he felt like a voice called to him. Where am I? Wang Lin was still confused. The voice calling him appeared and disappeared. When he wanted to listen to it, it no longer existed. How did I get here? Wang Lin felt confused as he walked forward. The sky here was dark and the earth was covered in haze. The whole world was covered in fog, so he could not see far away. This place was a ruin. There was no life in the world, as if it had been abandoned for countless years. The mountain was no longer green, it was now grey with defeat. Who am I? The confusion in Wang Lin's eyes became even stronger. He seemed to have a lot of memories, but he couldn't remember who he was, why he was here, and where this place was. Wake up! Wake up! That voice faintly echoed once more and Wang Lin stopped. I seem to have heard something. In his confusion, Wang Lin wanted to look back, but just at this moment, he seemed to see a mountain in the fog ahead. 7-colored snow was falling on the mountain, and it was very beautiful. There was a vague figure on top of the mountain. He could only vaguely see that it was a man holding a body. His long hair was being blown by the wind. This scene was filled with desolation and sorrow. Wang Lin stared at this figure. This figure made him feel a sense of familiarity. This feeling made his body tremble. A sorrowful roar came from the figure on the mountain. He raised his head and let out a roar at the sky, and it echoed in all directions. This roar contained a penetrating force that made Wang Lin's heart tremble even more violently. As this roar echoed, the dim sky began to tremble and countless ripples echoed, making it seem like the sky was going to shatter. It seemed like not even the heavens could resist the roar of this person and was going to collapse. Heaven and earth, the figure let out a roar, but just as the figure said those two words, another familiar voice appeared. Wang Lin, wake up! This voice seemed to have appeared out of thin air. When it appeared, the mountain Wang Lin was looking at disappeared and the figure holding the body that was roaring at the sky also disappeared. Wang Lin's body trembled and he subconsciously turned and looked behind him. When he turned around, there was a thunderous rumble in his mind. He remembered. He was Wang Lin, and he was going through a calamity in the ancient Sha ancestral temple. He was attempting to fuse his soul after the second soul split. After he remembered, there was no longer any confusion in his eyes, it was replaced with clarity. At the same time, deep inside the ancestral temple, there was an old man covered in white hair trembling 100 feet away from Wang Lin. This old man was wearing the same clothes as Xian Luo. However, compared to the youth Xian Luo normally looked like, there was a huge difference. Wang Lin, wake up, the old man roared, his voice hoarse. Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes. When he saw this old man, the old man revealed a look of joy. However, he could not resist the rebound force and was blasted out from the ancestral temple. Teacher, Wang Lin murmured, looking toward where Xian Luo had gone. He looked at Xian Luo's white hair and knew he could never forget this for his entire life. He suddenly raised his head and his hands formed seals. Large amounts of light appeared before him and gathered above his head to form a shadow. When Xian Luo was ejected from the ancestral temple, he saw the last halo slowly disappear. The halo that was about to disappear reformed and shined brightly. Then the second, third, fourth. 12 halos reappeared and shined brightly. Shortly after, the 13th, 14th, 18th halos all reappeared. The entire ancient Sha imperial city became silent due to this. After a brief moment of silence, a huge uproar echoed across the city. As the uproar echoed, the 19th halo appeared around the ancient ancestor statue. Then the 20th, 21st, 22 ND. Until the 27th halo formed. They shone brightly and ripples echoed. Now, not just the imperial city, but even Origin Mountain was shrouded in this light. Xian Luo revealed a smile. He didn't stay outside the ancestral temple. When the 27th halo appeared, he appeared in the sky and sat down. He knew this wasn't over, Wang Lin still had to go through the last soul split. In the ancestral temple, there was a large shadow above Wang Lin's head that almost occupied the entire ancestral temple. This shadow was dozens of times greater than after the first soul split. He raised his head and the shadow also looked up. His gaze seemed to penetrate the ancestral temple and he saw Xian Luo's faint smile. Teacher? Their gazes met, and after a long time, Wang Lin lowered his head. He took a deep breath. Although the second soul split was extremely dangerous, it could not compare to what he had seen when he was confused. He couldn't help but think of the figure that was holding the body and roaring at the sky. Who did that figure belong to, and who was the body he was holding? Wang Lin didn't dare to think about these questions. He was afraid to think of them. He silently sat inside the temple and recalled the 68 years he had spent here. "There's not much time left," Wang Lin's murmuring echoed inside the temple. In the ancient Sha imperial city, as the 27 halos shined brightly from the ancient ancestor statue, a huge uproar echoed across the entire ancient Sha imperial city, and everyone's gazes turned to the ancient Sha statue. 18 years. This person spent 3 years on the first soul split, and the second division took 15 years. He must have gone for a complete shatter and perfect fusion. The first time he succeeded, but during the second fusion, there was obviously an accident. I wonder how his third time will be. If this Wang Lin continues to completely shatter, then his third time will be very difficult. If I were him, I would end the third split early in order to stay alive. As everyone's gazes gathered inside the ancestral temple, Wang Lin took a deep breath. He removed all thoughts about that figure and fully immersed himself in the third soul split. He could tell that after this second soul split finished, his origin soul had become countless times stronger, and his cultivation had also become stronger. If the third soul split succeeded and his origin soul returned to his body, he felt he would reach a new peak. To the extent that perhaps, he could even surpass Gu Dao. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he revealed a determined gaze. He closed his eyes and his huge origin soul shadow, which occupied almost the entire ancestral temple, began the third soul split. It was also the last time. 3 years, 15 years. How long would this time last? Wang Lin had no answer. In a flash, Wang Lin had spent 7 years in the third soul split. After 7 years, the people of the ancient Sha all looked at the 27 halos around the ancient ancestor statue in excitement. The ancient Sha emperor had almost completed the handover to Jidu. The day when the new emperor would be crowned was getting closer and closer. As that day approached, the gazes of the ancient Sha moved from the ancient ancestor statue to the biggest matter in the ancient Sha. The ascension of a new emperor to the throne. Countless ancient Sha armies were slowly handed over to Jidu so he could get familiar with them. This was one of the preparations for the large celestial and ancient war that would happen in a few hundred years. 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. Time invisibly passed and the seasons changed. In the blink of an eye, another 15 years passed. It had now been 22 years since Wang Lin's third soul split began. If one included the previous soul splits, it had been 90 years since Wang Lin entered the ancestral temple. 90 years of time was enough for a lot of things to change. It was enough for a mortal to live out their life or for a new emperor to ascend the throne. The current ancient Sha emperor had already retreated behind the scenes, and the one to walk before others was Jidu. Although the grand ceremony hadn't happened yet, everything in the ancient Sha was managed by Jidu. Although he hadn't put on the crown, he was already wearing the royal robe. However, even so, his habit of looking at the ancestral temple every morning never changed. He firmly believed his godfather would succeed. In the ancestral temple, the large origin soul shadow had already shattered into countless fragments and was on the final portion of its collapse. Wang Lin had learned a lesson from last time and had left a trace of divine sense on his body. At the critical moment, this divine sense could awaken him. Wang Lin continued to endure the decades of pain as his origin soul shattered. Countless people were unable to endure this pain, but to him, he even felt a little numb to the pain. When the 95th year arrived, the entire ancient Sha was preparing for the crowning of the new emperor in 5 years. At this point, the shadow above Wang Lin had turned completely to dust. He began to attempt fusing. Due to the accident that had happened during the second split, Wang Lin was very cautious. He didn't try to fuse all at once but start fusing parts of it together until it became perfect. He had an even deeper plan, and if he wanted to succeed, then he would have to do it during the fusion. Times passed. After the 96th year, Wang Lin had fused 30% of his origin soul. The soul itself was not large, only about the size of his palm. However, this 30% was several times stronger than his soul was after the second soul split. Perhaps if he could completely fuse his soul the third time, it would bring him to a new peak. On the 97th year, Wang Lin's origin soul shadow had condensed 50% and was much stronger than before. There was only 3 years left until the 100th year. A bit more than 1,000 days and nights remained. During these few years, the ancient Sha imperial city was extremely lively. Almost all the powerful people in the ancient Sha had gathered to witness the most important event of the ancient Sha. The change in emperor had caused the entire ancient Sha to become extremely lively. However, the person who was going to inherit the throne had become silent. He went to the ancestral temple alone and sat down outside of it to cultivate. He gave up everything to accompany his godfather for the last 3 years before he became the emperor. As the days passed, more and more people traveled to the ancient Sha. Even people from the other 2 clans were on their way as well. Almost every day, many people would enter the ancient Sha imperial city. However, compared to the bustling imperial city, the ancestral temple was very quiet. It had been turned into a forbidden zone a long time ago and no one was allowed to get close. There were even countless guards from the royal palace guarding this place. Jidu listened to the bustling sounds coming from the outside as he sat in silence with his eyes closed. Godfather, 3 more years and I can become the ancient Sha emperor. Jidu sat there. As the days and nights alternated, the 98th year passed. Then the 99th came, and finally the 100th year silently passed. On this day, after 100 years, the gazes of everyone in the imperial city gathered on the ancient ancestor statue once more. However, they were not looking at the halos, but at their emperor. The entire imperial city was silent and there were countless people at the palace. They were waiting for the appearance of their new emperor. There were countless people standing on the square. The messengers from the other 2 clans had arrived in a grand fashion. The people that had come were also of the imperial families and had very high statuses. They were waiting in the square. At the very center of the square, there was a giant furnace. There was a soft piece of dirt inside the furnace with a huge incense stick stuck in it. The incense stick was not lit, the only person with the qualifications to light it was Jidu. This was the imperial power incense. The moment the incense stick was lit, the smoke would turn into a drum. Jidu was also the only one who could hit this drum. When the drum had been hit 9 times, Jidu would accept a bow from the entire ancient Sha. Everyone here was waiting, even the old ancient Sha emperor was waiting. Next to the ancient Sha emperor, there were several people. One of the old men hesitated and softly said, "Time is about to arrive. Your Majesty, this? Continue to wait. There is no auspicious time in my ancient Sha. When Prince Jidu comes to take the throne, then that is the most auspicious time," the old ancient Sha emperor said with a hoarse voice. The old man that had spoken earlier nodded respectfully. Jidu was sitting outside the ancestral temple with his eyes closed as if he didn't care that today was this big day. Shortly after, sounds of footsteps could be heard as guards in black armor slowly closed in. "Your Majesty, it's time," the guards got down on one knee. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man. Jidu didn't speak and didn't move. The guard kneeling behind him also remained silent. After half an incense stick of time, a sigh came from Jidu's mouth. He opened his eyes and looked at the ancestral temple. He silently got up and knelt down to kowtow 3 times toward the ancestral temple. "Godfather. Child is leaving." Jidu got up and looked at the temple before walking toward the guards. The guards followed him and they slowly left. When these people left, there was a shadow floating before Wang Lin inside the ancestral temple. This shadow was no longer the size of a palm, but the same size as his body, like before the soul split. The shadow shined brightly and looked very complete. It looked like it had fully fused, but the eyes of the origin soul were closed. 1 year ago, Wang Lin could have finished the fusion. The process had been very smooth and there were no accidents this time. However, he had chosen not to end it and had maintained a trace of defect. As a result, he had remained in a sleep-like state. He wanted to enter the blurry world he had seen during his second soul split. He wanted to see that mountain where the seven-colored snow fell. He wanted to see that figure again and hear the complete sentence. However, not even he knew how he had entered that blurry world, and he didn't even know what that place was. Finally, after 1 year of trying to find a way there, his thoughts became blurry and, for an instant, he faintly saw that world again. Imperial power, ignite! A shocking sound echoed across the ancient Shu imperial city. The entire palace was silent as all gazes gathered on the square, on the person in the royal robe before the furnace. Jidu no longer looked like a young man, but gave off a mature feeling. He stood there and looked at the sky as the shocking sound echoed in his ears. The sky was blue and clear. There was a soft wind slowly blowing, and when it landed on your body, it would give you a very comfortable feeling. Before him was the large furnace, and the incense stick was waiting to be lit. At this moment, he was being watched by everyone at the palace and by everyone in the ancient Shu imperial city. Even people who weren't qualified to come the imperial city had been organized by their city lords and were all looking at the direction of the imperial city. Even in the imperial city of the ancient Tao and ancient Ji, people were looking with penetrating gazes toward the ancient Shu imperial city. Ancient Shu Emperor. Godfather, I'll soon become the emperor. Jidu looked at the sky and his gaze fell on the ancient ancestor statue in the distance. He took a deep breath and waved his sleeve. A fierce flame appeared around the furnace and the incense stick was lit. Greetings, Emperor. Another shocking sound echoed across the palace. Everyone dropped down to one knee, only Jidu's father stood inside the palace and looked at Jidu. When the incense stick was lit, green smoke rose into the air and the sky changed colors. Clouds scattered and a rumble came from above. A huge rift was torn open in the sky and thunderous rumbles came from within. It was a giant ancient god that was nearly 100,000 feet tall, and beside it was an ancient demon and ancient devil. They carried a giant drum as they walked out from the sky and floated in the air. Jidu's body trembled and he flew into the air. When he was beside the war drum, he didn't hesitate to throw a punch at it. With a bang, a muffled drum beat immediately began to echo. It spread across the palace, across the imperial city, and across the entire ancient Shu. The first worship. The heaven-shattering voices rang out again and all the clan members bowed. Greetings, Emperor. As they bowed, their voices fused together to form a powerful sound wave. An even louder voice came from every corner of the imperial city. As the drum echoed, every city in the ancient Shu released the same voices. Bang! The second beat echoed when Jidu's right hand landed on the drum. Second worship. Greetings, Emperor. The voices became even more intense and replaced everything in the world. It was the strongest sound, second to the sound of the drum. Godfather, I have become the Emperor. Jidu's right hand landed on the drum for the third time. As the drum beat echoed inside the ancestral temple, Wang Lin remained motionless and his eyes were closed. At this moment, he saw a world. The sky was dim and the earth was a blur covered by a faint curtain of fog. One could only see that it was a place that had been left in ruins for an unknown amount of years. There was no confusion in Wang Lin's eyes as he walked. He didn't know if he was walking on land or the void, and he looked around as he slowly walked forward. He didn't know how long he had walked. Perhaps it was 1 day, perhaps it was 1 year, or perhaps a lifetime. Until one day, the mountain appeared before him. 7-colored snow was falling on the mountain and he saw a familiar figure on it. The figure was holding a body and roaring at the sky. Its long hair could not be distinguished from the 7-colored snow as it moved with the wind. The moment Wang Lin saw this figure, his heart skipped a beat and his breathing became rough. He wasn't looking at the figure, but the body the figure was holding. However, he could only see the black hair, not the body. He couldn't even tell if the body was male or female. His face was pale as he desperately rushed toward the mountain. But even after he rushed forward for a long time, he could not get close to the mountain and see what the body looked like. It was as if there was an uncrossable ditch between him and the mountain. The roar became even more intense, and it was now filled with endless sorrow and rage. The sky showed signs of collapsing once more, as if this roar had the power to destroy the world. The voice entered Wang Lin's ears and caused his heart to feel a sharp pain. This pain could not compare to what he had felt during the soul split, but to him, it was like the most painful thing in the world. Heaven and earth. The figure on the mountain raised his head and let out a roar. What's the point of being at the top of the heavens and earth? What's the point of being worshipped by all? What's the point of passing endless scriptures? If the world is like this, why not destroy it? If all life is like this, why not disappear? If the scriptures are like this, why not end it? Since it's like this, I'll use my own method to make the sky close its eyes, to make the earth sleep, to make the underworld river flow backwards, to make reincarnation stop, to make the world no longer exist. The voice was filled with shocking wool that scattered in all directions. Wang Lin's heart trembled and his body rapidly disintegrated as if he was going to kicked out from this place. The moment his body completely disappeared, he saw the figure holding the body trample the heavens, and the sky collapsed. He took the body and disappeared into the collapsed sky. The voice lingered as Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. He was still inside the ancestral temple, and his withered body seemed as if it had decayed. His origin soul was before him, looking at him. In the end, he still didn't get a good look at the body. Even the voice was completely blurry. It sounded familiar but also unfamiliar. The surroundings were very quiet, but there were still faint "Greetings, Emperor," coming from the outside. However, Wang Lin ignored it all, and his eyes were filled with confusion. It took a long time before the confusion disappeared, and he tried to force himself to stop thinking about it. However, it was very difficult, so it took him a long time to stop thinking about it. Wang Lin silently pondered. He had to make himself think of something else. Otherwise, this thought would take root and make him collapse. Impossible. Impossible. Impossible, Wang Lin murmured as he clenched his teeth. He pointed at his origin soul, and his origin soul shined brightly. The entire ancestral temple was shrouded in this powerful light. In this light, his origin soul shadow began to expand until it occupied the entire area. It didn't stop, it shrouded the entire ancestral temple and expanded toward the ancient ancestor statue. Inside the palace, the drum echoed. The ninth worship. Greetings, Emperor. As the voice of the ancient Sha members fused into a deafening roar, an extremely bright light came from the ancient ancestor statue. Jidu, who was standing in the sky beside the drum, suddenly turned his head. He looked at the ancient ancestor statue as the 27 halos shined brightly. At the same time, a shadow expanded and covered half of the ancient ancestor statue. Godfather! Jidu was startled for a moment and then his eyes became filled with shock and excitement. At the same time, everyone else noticed what had happened to the ancient ancestor statue. They saw this shadow instantly cover the statue and reach the same size as the statue. The shadow seemed to overlap with the statue, but when it did so, the ancient ancestor's appearance changed. It now looked similar to Wang Lin. This was because Wang Lin's origin soul had expanded and covered up the ancient ancestor statue. In the sky, Xian Lua revealed a happy smile. Ancient Dao 3 soul splits, he has finally succeeded. I wonder what kind of gift he will obtain from the ancient ancestor. On Origin Mountain, Song Qian, who wasn't attending Jidu ceremony, also looked at the ancient ancestor statue, and the same thoughts echoed in his mind. What kind of fortune can he obtain in the blessing of the ancient ancestor? Song Qian was looking forward to it. Just as everyone was looking at it, and even Jidu ceremony had paused, the 27 halos around the ancient ancestor statue shined brightly and then flew into the sky. The halos rose into the sky and ripples echoed in the air. After the last halo rushed into the sky changed colors. The 9 songs echoed across the ancient Sha imperial city. This sound was wonderful and could not be described by words. Ripples appeared and then a ghostly light suddenly descended from the sky. Then there was a faint ray of red light that gradually became brighter until it dyed the sky blood red. This was a drop of blood. This drop of blood gave off the aura of a soul, and when it appeared, the entire ancient Sha imperial city became dead silent. Soul blood. On Origin Mountain, the moment Song Qian saw the blood, he was shocked and revealed a look of disbelief. It's soul blood. 3 drops of soul blood can create an ancient clan. He already got a drop before, and now, this is the second drop. Xian Luo took a deep breath. Even he didn't think Wang Lin could get a second drop of soul blood. This video will end here.